What follows are my initial thoughts and reactions to this book of the Bible. I have not done any outside research regarding the more challenging or problematic passages of Christian scripture. Therefore, do not take whatever criticisms I may make in this video as my final word on the passage or verse in question. I am very likely going to be doing a Bible Revisited series addressing my different issues with the Bible, book by book, after conducting ample outside research. So now, without further ado, let's jump into the review.
We've gotten to the last of the Gospels, okay, everyone? I'm trying to hold back a sneeze. Gotta clean off that lens. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten to the book of John, which is the last of the books of the Bible that have to do with directly having to do with Jesus' life. And I've read and reviewed Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And, you know, now that I've gotten to John, I was like, you know, it's probably going to be the same exact thing as Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Those books are all very similar, and Luke is a little different than Matthew and Mark, but still, it's kind of just the same regurgitated story. Very interesting, all three of them. They have some minor differences, and, you know, that's fascinating and all that, but I was like, well, now that I got into the book of John, I hope it's not too long, because, you know, it's just going to tell me what I already know. Wrong! The book of John is by far the most unique of the Gospels, and it's also my favorite. This book was, if you want to use the phrase Jesus-y, this was the most Jesus-y of the Gospels. The way it was written, the way Jesus was portrayed, it was very, very cool. I really, really, really enjoyed the book of John. It was also written, like what was included in the book was different than the others. It just did not cover as much, but it explored much more. I was kind of blown away, and I would like to now talk about the things I both liked and did not like in the book of John. I just want to read you the opening of the book, just because it gives you an idea of, like, the whole book is written this way. So I will just start from verse 1 of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light, he came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Wow. What an opening. Also in the book of John, there is, of course, the famous John 3:16, which was, For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. You know, famous verse, great verse, I think. Moving on. Now, this may not be an inconsistency here, but it is something to note. The famous Jesus walking on water story from the other books is different in the book of John. Yes, Jesus walks on water, gets in the boat and everything, but in the book of John, they left out Peter walking on water as well, because Peter, in some of the other books, walked out on the water to meet Jesus, but then he lost his faith, or, you know, doubted his faith, and he started to sink in the water, and then Jesus helped him up. That's not in here. Perhaps an inconsistency, I don't know. You know, it could just be that the author of this was like, well, it's not really the focus of this book, and so I don't really feel the need to put that in here. I don't know, but interesting to say the least. I mean, this is a little detour, but I just want to emphasize Jesus, like, that guy pointed out hypocrisy like no one else. And I think if he were today, we're here today, people would hate him, just like they hated him back then. Because, man, he went after these Pharisees. John 7:21 to 24 exemplifies that for sure. Now here I'm going to read one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible. Now, it's important to note that the earliest manuscripts of the Bible that we have did not include this story. So why is it in here? A lot of people say that it was just a story that was not included in the first place. Doesn't mean that didn't happen. It just, for whatever reason, it wasn't put into the early manuscripts. But it was added in later through oral tradition or that sort of thing. It was something that probably did happen, but perhaps the original authors of the manuscripts did not feel the need to put it in there, even though it did happen. I don't know. Point is, though, it's a great story, and it does not contradict any of Jesus' character, and it's very, very, very compelling. I would like to read it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. It is John 8, 1 to 11. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, and the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." I love that passage. He says, "You who are without sin, let you cast the first stone." And of course, no one can cast the stone because everyone is a sinner and everyone deserves to die. That's kind of the whole point of the Old Testament law. At least that's kind of what people believe was the whole point, Christians in particular, was to show you that you cannot do this. You are not good, and you will never, no matter how hard you try. You may be like a little bit more clean of a dirty rag than others, but you're still going to be a dirty rag at the end of the day. In truth, everyone deserves to get stoned. And here, Jesus forgave this woman of her sins and told her to leave her life of sin. And he said, "I do not condemn you." And it was just beautiful because it just shows like obviously Jesus did not approve of adultery or anything, or prostitution or anything like that, because he speaks about sexual immorality quite a bit in the books. And one of the things that is included in sexual immorality in the Bible is adultery and prostitution. It's considered immoral. And so clearly Jesus thought it was immoral, but he had grace and mercy, more grace and mercy than these Pharisees and others, because he recognized this person was a human, and we're all sinners, and all of us deserve to die. But with old Jesus there, we can live, if you believe that or not. But that's the point in the story, I think. And I don't know, I just think it's a beautiful story. One of my favorite passages, like I said, in the entire Bible. Now, these other passages I'm going to read to you here have to do with the idea, at least and I believe they have to do with the idea of what about people who either never heard the gospel of Jesus or were wrong, or were just mistaken, honestly mistaken about the Bible. I didn't believe in it. Because I'm always like, well, if God is so great and wonderful, then why... What about people that never heard? Did they just go to hell because they were ignorant and they couldn't help it? It's like, well, I mean, that seems pretty awful to me. That doesn't seem just. And I think these verses actually illuminate upon that quite a bit. And I'd like to read them for you. And this is my YouTube channel, and I can do whatever I want, so I'm going to do it! This is John 9:35 through 41, and this is about a blind man who has been thrown out of, I believe, the temple. I don't know. It's been a while since I read this, but point is, a guy got thrown out, cast out. And Jesus heard that they had thrown this guy out. And when he found him, he said, obviously this guy is not written in the Bible, but I'll just read it the way it's supposed to be. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he, sir?" The man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." Another passage. This is John 15:24 to the end of the end of John 15. "If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin. Now, however, they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father as well. If I had not done among them what no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. But now they have seen these miracles, and yet they have hated both me and my Father. But this is to fulfill what is written in their law. They hated me without reason. When the Counselor comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who goes out from the Father, he will testify about me. And you also must testify, for you have been with me from the beginning." You've got like a Native American who really believes in God and is trying to find God and is trying to follow God and do what is right. He's trying his very hardest. And he just, honestly, is mistaken. He believes the Son is God or whatever. Because he's never heard about Jesus and the cross and that sort of thing. I think based on those verses, those sorts of people who never hear, say like a Muslim in Saudi Arabia who just never hears the gospel, or maybe they just never even meet a Christian ever, or even know what Christianity is about. I think since God is a judge, he takes into account what how those people live their lives in the absence of live their lives, and I think he also takes into account that they were ignorant. And so I do think that some people who I've never heard do go to heaven if they are truly trying to find God and do what is right. Now, obviously that's not written there, but I think you can infer from that passage that. But the kicker is, if the gospel is presented to you and you understand it and you say, "Hey, not for me," you're Bill Maher or someone like that, then hey, God's not going to make you go to heaven because you don't want to. You said no. You rejected it. And I think that's kind of the point. The point is those who have never heard, they've got an excuse. Those who have heard and say no, no excuse. As this Bible review series is, for everybody. And so I know there's some non-Christians out there who are like, well, hey, man, stop saying that I'm, blah, 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 blah. This is a bunch of hocus pocus. All I'm saying is that is what I think the text is saying here. Another verse I want to read to you guys from the book of John is actually the very last verse in the book of John, and it goes like this. "Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written." I just think it's very interesting and very cool the way it ends. Like I said, the way the whole story of John is written is very unique, very compelling. The subject matters that's covered is very different. It's very interesting. And like the whole book of John is really, it's just really beautifully told. And it's, like I said, very, very unique. And it seems, to me, it's the most impactful. And one of the more compelling things about the ending, the very end of John, is it does not end with Jesus ascending to heaven. And the other books, they talk about Jesus ascending to heaven and, disappearing and that sort of thing. In the book of John, it literally ends with Jesus on like the shore of the Sea of Galilee, I think, or was a river? I think it was the Sea of Galilee. I'm not sure. Having a fire, making breakfast for the disciples as they come off of a boat and after they've been fishing. He just shows up. And, he's died and resurrected, and this is just one of the times they've seen him. And he has a conversation with them, and it just ends that way. The ending of the book of John is just cut short. It was just cut short a little bit. And I found that very fascinating, and I don't know, just the image of Jesus as this minimalist, just like charismatic figure was so well illustrated in the book of John. And it's just a guy who doesn't really own anything, just does good things for others, and builds fires, makes breakfast for his disciples who saw him die, and then he's resurrected and everything. Talk about a interesting image there. I just thought it was really cool the way the book of John wrapped up. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are all my thoughts on the book of John. I hope you've enjoyed this this review and discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have read the book of John, please leave any comments, questions, thoughts you have, answers for any of my questions in the comment section below of this video, and I would love to take a look at them. And as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel, and please, ladies and gentlemen,